Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. And so it is again that there is an assemblage in the room that is greater than the sum of the parts. And this is a quantum statement. For in linearity, you cannot sense even what might be taking place here. And so we ask you to look at the reality that you have as you sit in the chair or listening and temper it to include the possibilities of what we speak. I would like to give you a channeling that I have not given in any form except pieces before. I'd also like to make a statement that this particular channeling will be given again one time, and not necessarily when my partner thinks it will. And it may be that I would like my partner to put both of them for listening or one, and I will tell him when it's time. And so it is the way of it that my partner has a learning curve as you do. And the learning curve is that which he needs as well as you. You get used to things that are not in the purview or the dynamics of your reality. And when you step away from your reality, things become difficult. Difficult to see, to describe, to label, to teach. And so it is we go slowly and perhaps even repeat. To all of you who may be listening in any way right now, I say this: blessed is the human being who understands the learning process and is patient with themselves. Human beings tend to be impatient in so many ways, and spiritually the most. They want everything now because they can feel intuitively that it is theirs to have. Do not be discouraged with the process when it does not achieve itself all at once. That is the first instruction of the day. I want to talk about the future. As Kryon, I speak to you with the potentials of what might be. But these particular potentials are manifesting themselves quicker than not. And so I give you these things in the light of what we see, the energies that are out there, and the things that are happening in the dark that you cannot yet see that we do. Not in a dark place, but in the dark, meaning they are not yet public. We are seeing a future for you that is far different than perhaps even you would imagine is there. So let us start with the premise. We have discussed it before. It is an entirely different channeling, a different teaching. Humanity is new. The age of the universe, this universe, the one you are in, even your galaxy, is enormous compared to all of the numbers that you would consider as appropriate for life. Billions of years. Your galaxy has been here. Many revolutions, maybe even up to 16, and some of you will know what I mean, the stars around the center. When the galaxy was coalesced to the point where it is now and will stay for a long time. And during that time, life occurred all over the galaxy. And we have told you this before. There are civilizations that are millions of years old. The one that seeded you, over 1 million. And you just started. The new kid on the block, you might say. Life tried 5 times to start itself on this planet, and only the 5th time did it succeed. That's cellular life. It's only been literally in the last flash of time that human civilization has occurred in that which we would call a seated state of enlightenment. That is to say, that those from the stars came and did their work to start you on a path that changed your DNA, and here you are. And it wasn't even 200,000 years ago. And it took another 100,000 for that to be complete. And so here you are, brand new. And yet you have gone through 5 cycles already of what we would call conscious awareness. And this being the 5th one brought me to Earth. 21 years ago, I showed up and I said things have changed. There is a shift going on, and I want to tell you about it because the potential, dear one, that you are going to move through this shift. And you have. You already have. There's no question that you have. Well, right now, even before that magic time of 21 December 2012, we see you have. And there is absolutely no doubt that you are passing this marker. And so we bring you the information of what might be next. And we try to dispel those things that we are hearing, even from those who are very enlightened. You move into a state of graduation, some have called planetary ascension. What will it be like? Now, if you ask those who seated you, they went through the same thing. And so they can tell you what it's like. And they can also tell you the process is longer than you want. But it begins, and you start to see generationally the changes that are going to occur, and I am going to list some of the attributes that will and will not potentially take place. A planet in ascension, passing the marker, becoming far more enlightened. What's it like? And you might say, well, you're turning a page of human nature. You're going to have a spiritual population. No, you're not. Wait a minute, Kryon, it's a message where you're going to ascension status. There's going to be knowledge of past lives, of enlightenment. No, you're not. Not yet. If I had to title this particular message, it would be the recalibration of thought regarding the future. A perception of practicality for you to absorb and understand, because many of you are going to live this. And I don't want you to be disappointed. But I want you to see it when it starts to change. And I want you to understand what it means. Dear ones, there'll come a day when Earth will be everything you think it will be. And it's going to take a while. And it should. For generations will pick up those things that the other generations will leave. And slowly the children of the children of the children will see clearer than you. And the irony of all of this is you are the children of the children of the children. Because you're coming back. You wouldn't miss this. Old soul, listen. You've plodded through the old energy. And this is the marker that you always knew was the potential. And from here on out, it gets better. It gets better. And for those of you who say, I'm not coming back, I will tell you, when you get to the other side, you will change your mind. For it's not the same. And I'm going to expand on that. The first thing I want to give you is information about Akashic inheritance. There is an old energy system that DNA, even though your Akashic record is in it, does not come forward to give it to you, does it? You've got to have a reader tell you who you are, who you used to be. It hides. You may have shadows of it in dreams and visions, but you really don't know. What if that would change? The human being, I mentioned 2 times before, comes into the planet ignorant. Little tiny baby has to be taught everything from scratch. How many times have you learned to read? What's wrong with this picture? The animal on the plane, and I'll say it again, that plane which is what you would call, careful my partner, I want you to describe this correctly. Where nature does its work apart from men, you will watch the animals in their glory, instinctively giving birth to calves. When they hit the ground, they know who their enemies are. They know what plants not to eat. They know what poisoned water smells like, and they even know how to walk, and they'll do it within hours. Do you ever think about that? And where was that taught to them, dear ones? Think of this. Whether it's the buffalo or the horse or the giraffe, they come out knowing. And within hours, they're running with the herd. And yes, there are things that they will learn, but most of the survival instincts are known. Human baby comes out, nothing. Nothing. Has to learn everything every single time. Now that's the first premise we would like to tell you about, and it is already begun. Ask the children how they like school. And most of them will say it's broken. They'll be right. Because they know things. Already, gradually, instinctively, the human being is coming into the planet knowing things that they didn't know in previous generations. The system itself is changing. And that is the secret to everything I'm going to tell you. This hour together. For knowing that premise will help you to understand now what's going to follow. There'll be New Agers that will teach you that an ascended planet is going to have humans who can do out-of-body experience. They can all see colors, and they'll be psychic. And that is not going to happen. Oh, there will be numbers of them, because there always are in that curve of old souls. Ones who will come in as teachers, who will see the colors, as those who will have the out-of-body experiences to bring back the information. It is appropriate, it is real, but that is not the foretelling of what humanity is going to be. So if that's not what humanity is going to be, what is it going to be? I don't want the New Agers to be disappointed when I talk about it. For it's a little too practical. But in the practicality, there is such a beauty. So let us discuss it just a little bit. The future. I want to talk about something which we'll call variable survival instinct. And in order for me to discuss this accurately, I'm going to have to give you 3 pictures. Past, present, and future. To show you the difference between humanity then, now, and potential. Go back with me as little as 1,000 years. And look at humanity in general. It comes in survival mode, as you still do, as the animals of the plain do. And in that survival mode, what you did 1,000 years ago is vastly different than what you do now. For survival meant whatever you have to do to survive is appropriate and correct. If you clump together as a race or a civilization or even a city or even a country, there was the thought that it is appropriate for you to become as strong as you can and take from those who are weaker. Not only appropriate, but you don't give it a thought. Armies, conquerors, they do it all the time. If you can expand your area, it is appropriate. If you burn villages and rape along the way, they are weaker. It is appropriate. Now I'm going to give you an irony in this. It wasn't always like this. That is this section of humanity. If you go back 20,000 years, it's not that way. You want to linearize humanity and think that human nature was always this way. It was not. I'm only going to give you the attributes of the last 10,000 years. For that is what I would call this segment of learning. From a decision point you had before, which literally almost wiped you out. This is what I would call the growth of civilization, and it's normal, and even your seed, space brothers and sisters, went through it. But here you are today, different than that. You come in today with survival instinct, and the survival instinct is the same. Survive. But today, you look at it differently. What is appropriate and not appropriate, somehow along the line, has changed. And so today, you are not apt to war as easily. In fact, there are those who would say it is never appropriate. There is controversy. There is old energy mixed with new. And you know it. As you look back 1,000 years, you would say that is barbaric. Now I ask you, is it the same humanity? It is. And as my partner has put on the screen, and he asks you, do you think human nature changed? It has. What is responsible, therefore, from that that was to that that is? And what is it that changed? There are those who would say, as humanity gets more crowded on the globe, they will be more in survival. You're going to have worse situations. One will take from the other just to survive. There's too many humans. And the opposite has occurred. Did you notice? That is counterintuitive, even to the sociologists. Something occurred. You reach a decision point, dear ones, right now on the planet. In this shift that you're going through, you're about ready to see permission to change yet again that which is your DNA. And here is then what the future will foretell. Within 2 generations, perhaps even 3, which is simply a very small amount of time for humanity, you're going to see human beings who come into the planet, a planet that, by the way, is not overcrowded, where war is never an option because here is their survival. They'll come in with this knowledge, total, an instinct that says, when we put things together and cooperate, we will survive. And so all, including the children, including the adults, will have lived long enough to know, out of the womb, that you solve the puzzles in a different way. And the concept is this, that if your neighbor does not have what you have, you will find a way to help your neighbor have it. Because that creates a confluence of energy and compassion that cannot be denied as an instinct that is survival of the human race. And you will look back on today and say, it was barbaric. Come a day, dear ones, where torture is not on the planet, where human rights is seen as that which is so common, just as you eat every day, expected, not demanded, not a political agenda, but instinct. What is it that then changes? This is a planet that then starts to morph itself into what we would then call an ascended status. What is ascending is consciousness. You're not going to turn into light. That might be later. But not for a long time. Invention will be accelerated so that you will understand quantum energy, be able to measure it, see it in the human being. The revelations to come are enormous. More invention than you've ever had in all human history is going to happen in the next 100 years. When you discover the attributes of multidimensional measurements, inventions, you'll able to change mass, design massless objects, travel, communication, all of the things that put humanity together, and finally, even let you talk to those beyond. And all those stories and movies of the monsters that occur in ships will be gone. And you'll realize there aren't any. That they look like you. That so many are benevolent. And you see the compassion of God instead of the destruction and the horror that you've been told is out there or might be out there. Get ready for this, dear ones. This is the evolved human being. You will solve the problems that today you look at as unsolvable, and we mention it, and this is the third time I will tell you, you will not have global crowding. And the reason is because you will have zero population growth. I want you to take a look right now, for it's already started. Those places on the planet you would call first world, many of them already have zero population growth. Some have less than that. And this is going to be combined with what I'm going to tell you next, where you live longer. And you'll say that's impossible. For geometrically, one begats another, and there'll be too many people. And I'll say this again and again and again. Humans are smart. They know what's causing it. You have a choice, don't you? And instinctively, you'll choose to have children or not, or to have 2 instead of 13. And it will create a situation which nobody expects. Humans who actually will do this instinctively without rules, without mandates, without a government stepping in telling you what you can do and what you can't. We've given you information about how cities might change. Cities are created because you need to work in them. Because the utilities have to be clumped together with factories, and that's how you get your electricity and your water. What if all 3 of those weren't needed? What if there are ways of working from home from now on? What if electricity could be generated safely and easily and cleanly for 10 houses at a time? The same with water. What if utilities were a thing of the past and you didn't need them? Welcome to a new earth. And cities become less like cities. They'll be where the factories are that make things, and a few will work there. But in general, you won't have millions in one place. It won't be needed. You'll start to spread out. I'm giving you the new sociology. I'm talking about what will indeed happen and the potentials because of where you're going and what you're doing. And this is just a few. These are the potentials we see, not in your generation, perhaps not in your children's or their children's, but beyond. But you will see the beginnings of it, and it'll start with invention, and when you see it, you'll know I'm right. Why would you come to a city and fight the traffic when you don't need to? When you could live and work and be all of those things and have space around you. Sounds too good to be true. Dear human being, you get smarter when the DNA starts to develop. Instinctually and conceptually, you come into the planet knowing what works, and you don't have to be taught from scratch. And that is evolvement. Two more things. Let me tell you about the biology. What's going to happen biologically? Well, they'll say, well, you're going to have brand new DNA and there'll be chemistry that's going to change. You're going to see it. No. No, you're not. Because the part that is going to change is going to be that part which is quantum. The 90% or so that is seen as doing nothing, which does everything, is going to start shifting. We have spoken of, perhaps inappropriately because it's a linear measurement, a percentage of activation in your DNA, which is currently at less than 30%. A fully activated DNA in a human being at 90 to 100% creates a master who walks the planet, and you've had a number of them. You saw what they did. They were simply full functioning human beings. That's all they were. And what was their message to you? Here was their message. We are full functioning human beings, and you can do it too. Take a look. This is your future should you choose to work at it. That was their message. You can do it too. They had divinity inside, and they said, we are a part of God, and so are you. They said, we are one with everything, and so are you. And there were many of them. Some of you chose to worship them, thinking they were like gods, never understanding. They were simply futurists, showing you what was going to happen if you wanted it. That's where you're going. As the DNA begins to amp itself up and work at a more efficient basis, and I'm not going to use percentages, that's so linear. You can't do that in a quantum state. Just say it works better. The biology starts to cooperate, and you live longer. A lot longer. Up to 3 times longer. Not only that, the elimination of disease by itself, because the body now is able to fight it. Where something called innate in the body talks to you on a regular basis intuitively. And if you got a disease in you or a cancer in you, you know it when it begins. And you don't have to report to somebody and get a test to find out later. The body is more aware, it's smarter, it's intelligent. This is DNA at its best, working to give you a conceptual view of your own cellular structure, a self-diagnostics that is intuitive. And it's about time. Can you imagine what that might do to your medical industry? It's actually going to help them. Because when you show up at their doorstep, you'll know what you need. And they'll be able to help you far better. And that's another story where they're going. Where we have told you that there is an inappropriateness right now on the planet, especially in your country. Where keeping people sick for money is at hand. And I'm going to tell you, dear ones, that's going to fall over. Get ready for the demise, as you know it, of Big Pharma. It is not going to continue. It cannot, any more than tobacco did, for the same reasons that it did. Any more that banks can continue doing what they did for the reasons they did, and you took care of it and it hurt. It still hurts. You are recalibrating that which has integrity. One by one, the blocks are falling over. Let this be an announcement to those who think they can continue doing this to get out of the business while you can. For it's going to change. It has to. And there are those who say, Kryon, when is it going to change? And I will tell you again that Spirit has no clock. These are potentials. They will when they do. When they can no longer sustain an inappropriate energy, when there's light around them, they will fall quickly. And you've seen this in governments. You've seen this in industry. You've seen it in banking. It's going to happen. And so these things will develop and have integrity eventually in a way that helps humanity. And we say, blessed is the human being who goes into a medical situation and learns about the human body so they can help others. They will always be needed. It's always going to be a combination of what you do with yourself and what they do to help with the inventions that are here. This is why they're given. Don't put them in a box and say, I have one or the other. Or call it spiritual. Or say it's inappropriate to use those things what Spirit gave as inventions to humanity simply because you're in a box. Doesn't work that way. Use everything that is here to keep you alive, dear one, because the planet needs your light. Could it be any clearer? All of the things given to you can be used appropriately in combination. Biology is going to change. Life expectancy will become longer. And then there's a human being who says, I don't think I want to live that long. My goodness, I know what it feels like. At 70, why would anyone live to 300? And we will say to you, how 3D of you. How would you like to feel like 35 until you're 298? And that is what is at hand, dear ones, that the body then rejuvenates itself much better than it does now. Can you conceive of this? Where the stem cell blueprints are picked up over and over, and you don't make a copy of a copy of a copy, you make the original over and over, and you last a long time. And you last fresh, young. This is what is possible. This is where it is eventually going. And there's potentials. Kryon, you mean that's an absolute? No. Humanity is free choice. You can turn this around if you want to, but the steamroller is fired up and moving. It's hard to stop it. The ball of snow is rolling down the hill. It's hard to make it then smaller, if you get what I'm talking about. Finally, there's so much to talk about. There are those who are going to say, all right, how about the big one? What are we going to do about religion? There are those who would sit with a mindset of what you would call metaphysicians or New Agers who would say, well, it's all going to have to go away because they'll realize the truth. No, it won't. Why should something go away that has the seeds of a love of God? Why should it go away? For those who saw the Master in all his glory and wrote about him, are you going to throw that away? One of the only human beings on the planet known to have met with an angel face to face in a cave and had dialogue and instructions and became a prophet. You going to throw that away? No, let me tell you what's going to happen. With that which is being developed in your DNA, which is the same thing that's going to keep humans from warring, is also going to give them a different opinion of how they should look at various belief systems on the planet. And they will continue to have those organizations under certain names that you even know now, but there will be big differences. And the difference is what I will call an allowance of compassion. One will look at the other and see it as a branch on the same tree coming from the same source, and they will respect one another. Just like you eat different foods for you, different ways of worship, respect for the other, not anger, not war. And that is what some of you won't expect either. And you're going to see the seeds of it. Sometime in your generation, you may even see the seeds of it. It starts to appear. A gentleness between belief systems. Do you really think you're going to have a planet where all of those thousands of years of teaching will simply vanish? It's not practical, is it? No. Instead, expect them to morph into something that is cooperative, that is beautiful. And the differences are celebrated instead of warring over them. And it's about time. This is the practical. The human being will change in an attitude, in the conceptualness of what is correct and not correct, and what creates survival will be that which is compassionate. This is the new human being. This is the future. You're starting to turn the corner. I've just given you a snapshot of what can be and what we say will take place. Before I go, I want to reiterate again. There's two things that you should celebrate right now in your chair. Number one, that you're going to be there to see it. That you will participate in it. That some of you will have Akashic remembrance, because Akashic inheritance will start to surface. You will come into the planet knowing, absolutely knowing, that you've been here before. That even the religions who don't believe that will see this, acknowledge it, and see it as part of a grand system that fits into their belief system. It gives credibility to the divine in you. And the divine in you is taught by all the religions. A monotheistic God is here on the planet, and that is the belief. And that's the first thing, that you'll be part of it. And the second thing, dear ones, even for those of you who don't believe this, that the children of your children are going to see a better earth, not a worse one. I want you to know this, and that is worth celebrating. You sit in the cusp. You sit right where the seeds are being planted, not even harvested, planted. Seed planters who may not see the harvest in their lifetime can now celebrate the harvest, which will be good. This is the love of God. It's why I'm here. It's why the channelers are here. If you hear a message that is not like this, I want you to examine it carefully, because there's more of us giving you this one than the other. The chances are, if you hear those who would warn you of the upcoming doom, they've got an agenda. Take a look, because it isn't the potential that's actually there. I'll say it again, old energy dies hard. It may be more difficult to come because change is that way. Lightworker, old soul, do not fear the change that you have brought. Through the hundreds of lives that you've lived, it is about time that this occurs. Flow with it. Understand it. Celebrate it daily. And thank God you're part of it. For it is the fruition of everything you've done. The very reason we're here. It is no wonder we wash your feet. Ponder these things, for they are the things you created. And so it is.